Welcome to the Call Your Shot podcast, your weekly sports recap podcast where we break down the hottest headlines, dissect the latest injuries, and serve up our own hard-hitting analysis of the past week in sports. But that's not all. We're not just here to talk about the past, we're here to predict the future as well. On the Call Your Shot podcast, we boldly predict the outcomes of the upcoming week's games.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. This is the Call Your Shot podcast with your host, Alix and Drew Moore. I've been gone for a while now, but I think we chose a pretty good day to come back, Drew. It seems like everybody and their mom wanted to sign today, and we had a lot of big news and a lot of big updates that ended up coming to happen. So, but how have you been over the past, few weeks now, Drew?
Just out here living the American dream as always. Finishing up my stint here at one of my clinical rotations, and then I'm going off to Denver for a little bit, and then get back into it, and hopefully become a real adult and get a job after this. So it'd be nice to be done with that program.
You gonna go root for your Denver Nuggets, I'm assuming?
I'm gonna go root for the Russell Wilson-less Denver Broncos is what I'm gonna be doing out there. So
So, we can get right into it. Get started with that one. So, Russell Wilson yesterday, I believe, did sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers after he was released by the Broncos. They do have to pay the majority of his salary, so the Steelers were able to sign him to like a 1.5 year deal or $1.5 million deal, as most of his contract is being paid off. So, what were your thoughts on that? Do you think it makes the Steelers, legitimate contenders within the AFC, even though they were hopeless at quarterback last year and they still were able to squeak in the playoffs? So.
I feel like at this point, Mike Tomlin is just trying to keep his record of not having an undefeated or not having a losing record throughout a season just intact is what it sounds like he's going for at this point. Are they going to win the Super Bowl now because they have Russell Wilson? No.
Yep.
Are they going to maybe win a couple more games because they have Russell Wilson? Yeah, potentially. But at the same time, well, yeah, anything's better than Kenny Pickett and Trubisky. So, but I think that ultimately this move is more of a stability kind of move in the interim, as opposed to trying to have the answer to get them to the next level. I think that they're still going to need a quarterback down the road because this is only like a 1 maybe 2 year solution for them. And good thing for Russ is that he's on a prove it kind of deal. So that frees up a lot of space for them to get more assets and everything. However, if he does end up doing well, he's going to want more money and he's going to be owed that money as well. Being a former Super Bowl champion, never won an MVP, but he probably should have won MVP because they just hate him out there in the West. But I think that a major thing that he does bring is going to be some of that leadership that some might say that he doesn't really bring to the table.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Believe. Well, whether or not it's the leadership you agree with is the other thing.
Okay.
But it is
Fair.
It is another voice, the veteran voice that is in the locker room that can give some sense of direction to the team, as opposed to last year with Pickens being a diva. I think that Russ is going to out diva the diva, and Mike Tomlin is going to be basically on Real Housewives of Pittsburgh, trying to control all of these personalities. So we'll see how that ends up working out. I think that there'll be a pretty good connection there between the two. Because Russ is known for dropping it in the bucket in the back corner of the end zone, and Pickens is known to be doing that toe swag drag in the back of the end zone as well, similar to your boy Tyler Lockett. So if they can make that connection, I think that they can be a real threat. But after Pickens, who else are we throwing it to? And we know how much you love Najee Harris. So I'm just not sold on the rest of the offense, but it's all right. It's cool.
I think it was kind of like some of the trades that we talked about with like the Knicks, and they get OG Anunoby and stuff like that. Like, it's a good trade or it's a good signing for them, but does it really move the needle? No, I think it's just going to keep them in the same spot that they've been in. But I don't think it can get much worse than they had at quarterback last year. So I definitely think Russ is upgrade. I don't know. I feel like Russ has had a very underrated season, given all of the circumstances with the Broncos and Sean Payton and stuff like that. And he actually had decent stats and decent numbers. And I think that his weapons now that he's with the Steelers are arguably better than when he was with the Broncos. You had Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy with Javante, but now I would say that Pickens is better than Jeudy or Sutton, and then Deontay Johnson has been proven to be one of the better route runners in the league. They're still, I don't know if he's a free agent or restricted free agent. And then you had Najee, who you love. Then you have Jalen Warren, who I don't know why you don't like. And then you have Freiermuth, who's also a solid tight end. So I mean, even if you want to say it's comparable, I don't think it's like a down or a massive downgrade that he had with the Broncos. And I think the Steelers have a much better defense. So, I think that there'll probably be another wild card team, and I don't hate it. I know we've talked about some of the other things that transpired in the NFL when it comes to the Falcons, who we're about to get into next. But I think the Steelers can be just as good. I think that they could be just as good. And like you said, with the Russell Wilson thing and the MVP at the Seahawks, he never even got a vote. That's the thing that kind of sucked. He didn't even get a first place vote. That's rude. That's just rude. But
that's like more disrespect.
Yeah. But I think it'll be solid. Mike Tomlin has shown that he's able to scrap these terrible seasons and still somehow chalk it up to a mediocre 8-8 or 9-8 season. And now you give him a quarterback who I would say is probably like average at this point, better than trash.
I mean, better than trash ain't really saying much when, it's just it's literally going from the bottom of the barrel to a above average quarterback. So I do think that he can bring some value, especially when you have a quarterback in Kenny Pickett, historically bad, like not even just like, oh, he was, he's all right, like no, historically
they
bad.
kind of had to. It was like the hometown hero who played in the area from Pittsburgh or whatever. They're like, you know what? It's just gotta have them.
I don't think you have to.
I don't think you do too. But that was like their reasoning, what they said. And I think that Russ, I don't know. I think that Russ is solid. And given the circumstances, they were a playoff team, so they weren't going to have a high draft pick. They don't have a whole bunch of, commodities other than Pickens, who they're not going to get rid of, that they could trade to try to move up in the draft. So given all the quarterbacks that are available, if you weren't going to get Kirk Cousins, you're not going to be able to trade for Justin Fields. I mean, I think Russ was probably the best option. Baker already re-signed. So, I mean, I think it was the best option that they could have done. And, worst case scenario, they would have brought Kenny Pickett back and said, let's try to convince these fans to buy these tickets for Kenny Pickett.
I think last thing here too was that Russ kind of was seeing the writing on the wall that nobody really wanted to buy that contract. Nobody wanted to eat all that money. And so when he went to Pittsburgh and saw that they were at least interested in offering him a contract, he was like, yep, absolutely. I don't even care, man. 1 year veteran minimum. Sure. Yeah, I'll do it. And so he was more than pleased as punch to sign that contract. But
Fair enough. Moving on, we did, as we mentioned, we'd had Kirk Cousins. He signed to the Falcons, which was, I don't think it was a major surprise for people, but it was a 4-year deal. I think it was like $100 million guaranteed or something like that, or it was like $140 million total, something like that. It was a pretty big deal, pretty solid deal. And Kirk Cousins has been notoriously known for having these great contracts. Somehow him and Dak are able to just finesse the NFL and these teams and somehow come up with these great contracts off of the torn Achilles. So now you pair him with the very young, dynamic offensive weapons that they have with Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. The sky's the limit for the Falcons. So what are your thoughts on that?
I do think it is very interesting how that man gets every penny that he can.
That's what I'm saying.
Like not as if like, he's just coming off of a season where he was fully healthy or whatever. Like he basically remade the market at the quarterback position with that contract.
Twice.
And and yet he has nothing to show for it. But I do think that this move for the Falcons is a pivotal one if they do have hopes of potentially, I don't want to say winning the Super Bowl, because I don't think that Kirk Cousins is going to be, I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be the guy to push him over the top to win a Super Bowl. But I do think that he is a guy that can definitely help them be another intermediate for when they do get a franchise quarterback, because he is, getting up there in age, and he also is coming off an Achilles tear. And granted, he is not a mobile quarterback, and he sometimes is a statue, but at the same time, he still slings that thing. He has a boatload of weapons out there,
Mm-hmm.
albeit doesn't have Justin Jefferson, but he still does have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and Bijan Robinson is a different animal compared to Alexander Madison or Dalvin Cook. I do believe, okay, maybe Dalvin Cook in his prime was a little bit, I mean, we
Yeah,
still don't
not as
know the
physical,
extent of,
but yeah.
yeah, we still don't know the extent of how well Bijan Robinson can be, but we did get glimpses here and there when your boy Arthur Smith would use him correctly. So
Yeah.
I do think that, going forward, this is going to be a very dangerous team. Their odds to win the AFC NFC South have already moved for them to be the favorite. It was like minus 110 now. It was like plus 110. So after that signing, albeit not a Super Bowl Super Bowl worthy movement of a market there, but I do think that it is a pivotal move, and when it comes to the division.
Yeah, I like the signing, similar to the Russ signing, and the fact that given the options, given the circumstances, it was basically the best situation. There was a lot of reports that came out that said that the Falcons preferred signing Kirk Cousins to a huge contract as opposed to trying to trade for Justin Fields and signing him. So it seems like with the new coaching staff, they definitely knew what they wanted in Kirk Cousins. And the more we talk about it, the more I do see the potential with the Falcons. I still think the Steelers can be just as good. I don't know, maybe just because I don't think people need to stop hating on Russ, which is weird because I'm a Seahawks fan. But anyway, yeah, no, I definitely like it. I think that Drake London has shown that he can be that elite number one, and he's shown it in spurts with terrible quarterback play. So now you give him Kirk Cousins, who is a very great, and he hyper targets too. But then you have the versatile weapons, and then you have Bijan Robinson. You still have Algier that's there, so I think you have a very well balanced offense, and I think that they should be the favorites. We know that Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans both re-signed with the Bucs, so they're returning division champions, but I still think that the Falcons should be the favorites in this situation, and I like it. So yeah, confirmed it was a $180 million deal, including $100 million guaranteed, which is about $45 million per year on average. And I don't know, it just goes to show like it's just the right place, the right time within the quarterback market. And when it turns over and when you reset it, and like I said, Kirk Cousins and Dak have just been, elite at understanding and being able to be at the right place at the right time. And I think it just goes to show when it goes to, leadership not being a cancer in the locker room or whatever the case may be, it gets rewarded. And Kirk Cousins has been, the model of consistency, good role model. And, you're just a great locker room presence. So I'm happy for Kirk, and I'm happy that, maybe the Falcons can actually use their weapons. Bijan Robinson is on my fantasy team, so I'm hoping for better things.
Yeah, I mean,
Dynasty.
that's the thing too. Like when it comes to either drafting a quarterback and going with like a new commodity or going with a known commodity and you get what you pay for kind of thing. And with Kirk, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. He might not be winning a bunch of big games, but he's also going to help your team win some of the regular season games and get you into positions where you guys might have a chance. And that's really the best you can ask for, is giving your team a chance to win, and not ultimately being the problem that, or not ultimately being the reason why your team is losing the game. Granted, he also can do that as well. But since 2015, he's shown that he can be that guy, going over 4,000 passing yards each year, except for his first 3 seasons where he was a backup, and he was also on Washington, so he can't really do much with Washington. But then last year, or this past year, where he got injured. However, he was leading the league in passing yards at that time,
Garbage time.
but I mean, okay. I mean, like yards are yards at the end of the day.
I mean, I
And
guess he's Matthew Stafford, but
Matthew Padford, what was that?
exactly. So I'm saying, like, you just speaking out both sides of your mouth.
I mean, no, not really. Like, because you look at his production, he's also getting the touchdowns too. From 2015, he got 30, 25, 27, 30, 28, 35, 33, 31, and then 18, which probably would have projected out to be, I don't know, 500,000 this year.
Would have
And
been like
so
40.
with that, I mean, probably honestly, I
Yeah.
think wasn't he on pace for like I think he was on pace for like 50 or something like that.
Yeah, I think
Like
realistically it would
50,
have been 40. He
55.
would have led the league in touchdowns easily, but yeah.
Yeah. And then like passing yards, he was projected for like like 5,500 or something crazy like that, or
Mm-hmm.
6,000. Um, Granted, smaller sample size projects out to be a massive number,
Exactly.
but
Right.
it still gives you an idea of how well he was playing, which probably led to that ridiculously overpriced contract. But, you know, props to him getting that bag.
It's just weird because it's like kind of, I mean, like I said, like I like the situation. I feel like given the Falcons circumstances, they kind of had to do it. But it was like, you talked about like potential transition or bridge quarterback. Like the way that they signed him and the deal that they gave him, they didn't give him as a bridge quarterback. They're like, this is like a opportunity where we think we have a young team that we could potentially win a Super Bowl within the next 3 to 4 years. Do you see that as a potential possibility? Because it's not like it's not a prove it deal. It's not an experiment. They put $200 million basically into this deal. So do you think that it could come to fruition?
Well, that's the thing though, is that I don't think that they're, one or two seasons away from winning a Super Bowl. And that's why I think it is more of a bridge contract because yeah, they're gonna get some great production out there and they're gonna get, a leader in the locker room, yada yada yada, all that jazz. But at the same time, they still are a few valuable pieces away from actually making some noise in the NFL. And I mean, granted, their defense was much improved
Oh,
last year compared to the years before. But at the same time, I do still think that um, they need another wide receiver out there complementing Drake London. You have Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts is only going to get you so far. You see the teams that are making that deeper push in the NFL. Unless you're Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey, you're going to need a major wide receiver other outside of just those two pieces. So I think that that's going to be the next step for the Falcons is to get another wide receiver and learn how to actually use your talent. God damn it, instead
yeah.
of just you know, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they probably do need another piece. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan are all great, but now that they have signed Kirk Cousins, they don't have to make a trade in order to try to get a Justin Fields or something like that. So they have the eighth overall pick in the NFL draft. So now they could potentially use
Mhm.
that. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to fall that far, but maybe you can get an Adunze or somebody else,
Yeah, going
which is
that deep.
still, which I would still be. You said what?
Yeah, Dunze is not going that far down
He
the
said
eighth.
one day some people need some quarterbacks, but
Nah.
that's fair enough. So lastly is basically the situation that has not necessarily happened yet. There's been a lot of talk in Chicago about Justin Fields and the Chicago having the number one overall pick. What do they do with that situation? There's been a lot of speculation that people assume that the Bears would ultimately trade. There's been some rumors that like, oh, we're going to try to keep both. There's been some rumors saying that they're going to trade Caleb Williams. So what do you think is ultimately going to happen? And what would you do if you were in the Chicago GM situation?
I mean, what's what's left for Fields at this point, right? Like, I think at this point he's looking at being a backup no matter where he is, unless he stays with the Bears, where he would just be a starter for a little bit and until they build up either well, I mean, more than likely it's gonna be Caleb Williams,
Mm-hmm.
um, unless it's Daniels.
It's
But
been gaining
if
some
they,
traction.
yeah, but if they do end up drafting a quarterback and keeping that pick, I do think that that's probably the route that they're going to have to go with at this point because I mean even most backup positions are being taken. The Raiders just signed your boy Minshew, and then Jacoby Brissett got signed over in New England,
Yeah, I
so
don't think
that's
they're going to
another.
be a starter though.
Well, no,
At
no,
least I
no.
hope they don't want to be
It'll
a starter.
no, that'll be another one of those similar to probably what they're gonna do with Justin Fields, where they're gonna have him start for a couple games, and then they'll have whoever that they draft end up starting the rest of the season, seeing what they have there. But I where does he go from here? I have no idea. Maybe he goes to the Saints. Please, anybody is better than what we have going on.
Hey
Maybe
man, Derek Carr was a Pro
somehow.
Bowler.
Okay. And yeah, okay, yeah, never mind. I'm not even gonna go. Anyways, um, or maybe somehow he ends up with the Titans. Um, I don't know what's left for him for them to get the amount back that they want, for um for Justin Fields
Mm-hmm.
because most of the teams that would have traded up to get a quarterback
Mm-hmm.
have already kind of solidified that position. Um, and I mean, I don't think that Justin Fields would be a great fit in Minnesota if they wanted to trade up for the number one pick or whatever. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
that'd be a good fit, especially because they also are selling off a lot of their players. Maybe Justin Jefferson might not even be there, like if they decide
Maybe.
to do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's gonna be interesting for sure. Where he ends up though, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I feel like hindsight's always 2020, but now if you're in Chicago situation, you're like, damn, we probably should have made some moves a little sooner here because, as you mentioned, pretty much all of the quarterback vacancies and spots within teams have been now filled, and pretty much the only thing that remains is the Patriots, who you said they got Brissett. But he could potentially go there. He could potentially go to the Vikings now. But like I said, I don't know if that's necessarily a great fit. Titans seem very stuck on feeling like Will Levis is the guy. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that situation. It's pretty messy. And, Justin Fields has come out and said that, he would want a decision to be made sooner than later because he's basically like, walking on eggshells now and he doesn't know what he's going to do. I feel like the situation with Caleb Williams is probably kind of weird too, not knowing exactly where you're going to go, or at least not even having a good idea. He's been going through some weird draft stuff and not wanting to, do the medical records and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know what's going on with that anyway. But yeah, it is a weird situation in Chicago. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen either. If I were them, I would have traded Justin Fields a while ago.
Yeah.
Because I think that you then reset the clock for the QB, and most of the time that's when teams win the Super Bowl and they can go all in. They have a good team around the quarterback and it's actually affordable, and you need to actually start paying the quarterback, which a team would have to do with Justin Fields. So I think that's the hesitation that comes with people not wanting to trade him or not valuing him as high as he probably should be valued. But I mean, I digress. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with that situation going forward. But
Yeah, and I mean, I do think that like he
do
has
you think he's worth
shown.
$180 million? Do you think he's worth
Well,
a Kirk Cousins
that's
deal?
the thing.
No, I'm saying that's
That's
what
the
he's
thing
gonna.
is,
That's what he want. That's what he's gonna
well,
want, though.
yeah, that's the problem. That's why nobody wants him. Is the fact that he is going to need to be a backup quarterback, but he wants to be paid as a top tier quarterback, and that's not at all what he is.
What would you rank
However,
him
he
overall? Because we know he's a dynamic weapon. We're not saying that he's like a Tom Brady pocket passer, but I'm saying that if like a young Lamar type thing, like he's shown the ability
uh,
to run. He's ran for over 1,000 yards, most rushing yards in the season. He's very versatile. He at times has been able to throw. When you gave him DJ Moore, he actually had a really solid connection with him. So I'm just saying, like, give him weapons, see what he can do. I feel like the Bears didn't
mhm.
necessarily give him the a fair shake or a good opportunity to completely show what he can do, and now they're in a situation where it's kind of too late. So I think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Is what I'm saying, basically. I
Yeah,
think he's
I
top
don't think he's
15.
outside the. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think he's outside the top 32 where he needs to be on the bench or anything like that.
Mm.
But at the same time, we talked about this before we got on here, is that they got to give him somebody else other than a 6 foot tall wide receiver and a 5'8" wide receiver to throw the ball to.
Hey
Like
man, you've been telling
that's
me for
not
years
gonna.
that DJ Moore is number one.
I mean, I've been trying to tell him, and I've been trying to tell you, my cousin out there, DJ
He had a
Moore,
great he had a great
is
he had a great year. I'm not gonna lie.
the 1 year that I didn't get him, of
I
course. So, but yeah, I think that you give him some options to throw the ball to, and all of a sudden, maybe the offense opens up. You see the potential with the running backs that they have, but also the running or the pass blocking has not been there at all. The man is running for his life on every snap, and whether it's a design run where they're like the defense is already in the backfield and he has to break 6 tackles before he gets back to the line. Like, there's so many things that team needs
Hey man, they're
to
trying to give him weapons.
say that.
They signed DeAndre Swift.
Okay, well that's the thing, that's a step in the right direction, but I
A
think
lot of
that
money.
just to say, well, money isn't real in the NFL or really in sports.
Well, then give it to
Um,
Justin Fields.
well, it's real when it comes to
QB money is a little different. QB money is a little different.
exactly. But yeah, to say that Justin Fields has been the main problem of the Bears, I think is unfair,
Mm-hmm.
because he has shown flashes in the past where he can be a dynamic dynamic threat where he's able to run the ball at the appropriate times and pass the ball at the appropriate times with pretty good accuracy as well. The problem is, what was it? Or not last year, but the year before last, when he went on that run where it was like the last 7 games or so of the season,
Mm-hmm.
when he was throwing for like 300 yards, rushing for 100 yards, and like going crazy. That was the quarterback that they had thought that they had drafted when they initially, wrote that contract for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he gets hurt and then he comes back and then he's not the same guy. Then he has a thumb injury. Then he tries to come back again and then he's still not the same. So whether or not that hand injury was lingering or something or whatever it could have been, I don't believe that he is the sole reason for the faults of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, no, I think him and the Chicago Bears are both in terrible situations now, and I think that majority of it is the Chicago Bears' fault. I think that they've been a pretty dysfunctional franchise, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. You obviously had the Mitchell Trubisky situation, but now you have the Justin Fields over the past few years, and going back to last season where there was a lot of post-game presses with Justin Fields talking about feeling kind of hampered and not feeling like he can let loose and questioning the offensive play calls and the coaching staff and all this kind of stuff. And then now it's kind of boiled over. So then you're like, okay, well, we don't even know if he wants to be there. They're probably going to end up trading him. Then they're saying like, oh, things are back at the good graces and now he's okay with re-signing, but now he wants to know. Then you bring in the new coaching staff and it's just kind of like a bad situation overall. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to end up doing with that. I'm assuming with all these moves going down that obviously they're gonna have to do something before the draft, but like I would probably assume that would be within the next week or so, but we'll have to wait and see. Other than the quarterback signings that we had today and yesterday, I would say that the biggest signing overall would definitely be Saquon Barkley, who in a shock to everybody, ended up signing with the Philadelphia Eagles on a 3-year, $37.75 million contract, which is worth up to $47 million with incentives, which basically has $26 million guaranteed and boils over to about $12 million a year, a little over $12 million a year. So it was a contract they wanted. It was the guarantee money they wanted, and he's not the high. I still think Christian McCaffrey is the highest paid running back, but he puts him right at the top of the market, and now puts him with a Philadelphia Eagles team who had a good amount of regression last year after starting 10-0, coming off the Super Bowl season, and then basically going straight downhill and losing to the Buccaneers of all teams. Now have a vaunted offense with Justin Field or Jalen Hurts, Saquon, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, you lose Jason Kelsey, which is unfortunate, but with all this news, he might come back. I'll come back. I got one more in me. He was still a Pro Bowler, second team All Pro, or I think he might have been All Pro. I don't know. So I mean, I'm sure if he wanted to, probably but yeah. Was. So thoughts on that? And are the Philadelphia Eagles, should they be the Super Bowl favorites or at least the NFC favorites over the 49ers?
I don't know if I'm going to go that far just yet, but okay. I do think that this move is a critical one, more so for Jalen Hurts, because, you see that he's always just trying to target Antonio Brown or AJ Brown, not Antonio Brown. Doing a little, anyways. But yeah, you always see him trying to target AJ Brown, but when he's targeting him, the defenses know, okay, they're going to pass the ball. And it's either going to go to Devontae Smith over here, or it's going to go to A.J. Brown over here, or maybe even Dallas Goedert down below. And you're in a passing formation. So we just know you're going to pass it. We're not even worried about the run. You get a guy like Saquon. He is so dynamic that could Swift do a lot of the things that Saquon can do? Sure. Maybe a couple of things here and there.
Electricity standpoint, but not from a thunder standpoint.
Oh hell. But yeah, in terms of being dynamic and everything, I believe that Saquon is a guy that no matter where you have him line up, he's always going to be a threat. Whether it's going to be a little screen route as a slot receiver, or whether it's going to be handing the ball off into a play action. Handing the ball off into an outside zone run or going into a play action pass. He always is in a position to be a threat. And that's just another aspect of the offense that the defense has to be cognizant of. And you can't just load the box when you see them. Okay, they have Swift in the backfield. They're probably going to run the ball. Or, you have Boston Scott in the backfield. They're probably going to pass the ball. And then, unless they're playing against the Giants, then Boston Scott's going to run it in for a touchdown because that's all he knows how to do.
Then you
But
get Gainwell touch up once in a while.
exactly. So I think that, the signing of Saquon makes their team that much more dynamic. And it also gives Saquon, it gives my God, Jalen Hurts an outlet to throw to. That way he doesn't always have to be bombing it down the field or throwing it across the middle to like Dallas Goedert. He also has an option to just dump it off to Saquon and actually have the expectation of getting yards instead of like, oh, actually we got 3 more yards than I thought we were going to get. Instead, it'll be, oh, actually we got 35 yards. That's nice. And so I think that, again, this is also going to be Saquon's best offensive line that he's been behind. So, like, fantasy wise, that's going to be pretty scary. Granted, they lost Kelsey, but at the same time, I mean, you go from the New York Giants offensive line where they put up a PFF grade of 41. Just for reference, the Chargers were the lowest at 40. And then you go all the way up to where the Philadelphia Eagles were at 3rd, and theirs was at 74.9. I think that is going to be a major difference, and we're going to see a lot of production out of this running game for the Eagles with Saquon back there. So, fantasy owners, beware.
Bruh, it's kind of it's not even really fair. That's kind of scary. That offense with Saquon and the versatility that they can have, and people were questioning if they think that Jalen Hurts is 100% the real deal after last season and all that kind of stuff. He battled through injury and stuff like that. I don't have any of those concerns at all. I still think Jalen Hurts is a borderline elite quarterback, but with the amount of weapons that they have now, and like you mentioned, that was the point I was going to bring up. The best year that the Giants had from an offensive line standpoint, I think they were mediocre at best with Saquon, and like the volume that Saquon's going to have now is probably going to be reduced. It's not going to be like a 3-headed monster or like a 2-headed monster like the Eagles have had in the past with the running backs, as you mentioned, but I think that the reduced volume is only going to go with the increased efficiency, with the good offensive line, with an actual good offensive scheme. And now you have Kellen Moore that they brought in as an offensive coordinator. And I think that he's shown that when he has healthy weapons, that he's been a very great offensive coordinator and a good offensive mind. And I think it's just, I think the sky's the limit in this situation. And like I said, I don't think that his volume is going to be anything near that he's had with the Giants, which I don't think it needs to be. I still think that the production's still going to be there. I think the efficiency is going to completely go up. And good situation for Saquon. He's had some drama with I don't remember with the other running, like I think it was like a former running back from the Giants, something like that, talking trash, saying that you're dead to me and all that kind of stuff. Okay, yeah, Tiki Bobber, and they're kind of going back and forth now. So whatever that is, but yeah. So now it's kind of weird though. You said what?
I was gonna say also, you lost Jason Kelsey, for the tush push, but now you have Saquon Barkley back there moving you forward.
Squat
like
600.
I mean,
that's fine.
Like shoot, put Saquon under center. You can run the tush push. Like that'd be crazy.
It's not fair at all. But yeah, I definitely think that this should firmly put the Eagles back at the top when it comes to NFC favorites. And I would probably, out of respect to the 49ers, agree that I would probably still have the 49ers number 1, but I would have the Eagles at a very close number 2. It's kind of weird. They kind of like did like a 49ers situation. It wasn't like an in-season trade or anything like that, but they're like, okay, we have this dynamic team. Let's just add one of the best running backs in the league. And I wouldn't say that Jalen Hurts is better than Brock Purdy. But, I mean, some people are questioning that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly like the script that the 49ers wrote for the NFL is that, before all of this, there was that thing about, running backs, like they're unreliable, they get hurt, they're replaceable, and they don't deserve these big contracts. Now you're kind of seeing the value of having an actual good, solid running game. Granted, Isaiah Pacheco isn't, an elite running back, but he is a solid running back nevertheless. And he was a pivotal part of the Chiefs' success in the playoffs. And then you also see the 49ers, who just took their game up to another level when they signed Christian McCaffrey, already having a dynamic offense, and then adding in another weapon, making their offense damn near unstoppable when healthy. And then
Mm-hmm.
you see the Lions as well. Not only did they do have a dynamic duo the year before, but then they got rid of them and they were like, yeah, let's just run it back with some other folks and just show you how much running backs actually mean and having a solid running game actually means to a powerful offense. So,
Mm-hmm.
you see all of that, and it shows the importance of having a running game to help with the passing game. So,
Definitely. I guess we can stay in the RB situation. There was a lot of great running backs that were free agents. Yeah, obviously had Saquon, we had Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry is free agent, a whole bunch of different ones. But now it's been confirmed that Tony Pollard is former Cowboy is been signed with the Tennessee Titans, a 3-year, $24 million deal. Any thoughts on that, Drew, or any expectations for the Cowboys now? What they should do with their running back situation?
well, in terms of what the Cowboys should do with their situation, I mean, Derrick Henry's available,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that running back situation back there. They um what's that guy's? I didn't even remember his name. The backup that they had not for the Cowboys. I'm blanking on his name.
Oh yeah, I don't
But
remember his name. Oh, like
regardless,
the Keyshawn Vaughn, or like you talking about the other guy?
no, not Keyshawn Vaughn. That was the coach's son. The other
Oh,
guy,
yeah, I don't remember his
starts with a
name.
B. I don't know. Anyways, he's not even that good, regardless, so it doesn't really matter. But moral of the story is, um, I do think that, again, Derrick Henry is an option, but that's not really going to fit their kind of game plan unless they are trying to go back to the Zeke Elliott ways, where you just feed Zeke, and so then they're just feeding Derrick Henry, and that's how Derrick Henry thrives, is in that kind of a role. But Derrick Henry still has some juice left, and I don't think that he's going to be a um looking for that kind of a role to where he might have to uh be or let me back up. I do think that that would be a good fit for Derrick Henry, but I don't
Mhm.
think that, even though he does have some juice left, I don't think that's the kind of role that he's going to be best suited for because of his recent injury history. And then he also has a lot of miles on his legs. I know we've been saying that for a while now, that he's got a lot of miles on his legs, but I do think we're finally starting to see that catch up to him, and he's going to want some money. So are they going to be able to afford that? Are they going to want to, restructure some contracts? Well, they can't, because they had to sign Dak Prescott, and then CeeDee Lamb wanted his money as well. And
And
then,
Mike is
oh
gonna
yeah,
break the
all
bank
those,
next year too. God damn it.
exactly. And then all those elite defenders you have, oh yeah, they cost a little pretty penny as well. So I don't think they're going to be able to afford what Derrick Henry's going to want. So maybe J.K. Dobbins is still available. Maybe you can get him. Maybe you look to the draft. This year is not really a great year for running backs. What they're calling it is like one of the worst running back draft classes in like the last 5-10 years or so.
Mm,
But one of the top guys, I do believe, is from Texas.
yeah.
So keep it in the state. Just hop on over to Dallas, and I think it's yeah, Jonathan Brooks. He's projected to be the 55th pick, so maybe, just maybe, they'll go with him in the draft and see how that goes.
Yeah. I don't have too many thoughts about the Titans, and I don't think that it was a move. Um, I don't think that Tony Pollard had the greatest year last season, and as the workhorse, I'm not exactly sure that he is that great of a running back as a workhorse. I think he's still versatile. I think he has good electricity, but I think he's a good complement running back, as obviously we saw with Zeke. So for the Titans to give him a 3-year, $24 million deal when I think he's going to be 27 coming up in this season, that's a little older for running back. So, I mean, I thought that was a great deal for him. I feel like that was probably the most
Hmm.
money that he was going to get, given the situation, given the year that he had, and given his age. But yeah, I think that the Cowboys, as you mentioned, Derrick Henry would probably be the top choice. I think we both talked about it, but I think that he would fit better with the Ravens scheme, especially with the Ravens liking to use multiple running backs, and they wouldn't have to basically run him to death. I feel like if he goes to the Cowboys, they're not going to use him lightly. I think they're going to try to use him a lot more than if he was with the Ravens. But I'm not exactly sure what the Cowboys are going to do. As you did mention, they're kind of restricted from a money standpoint because of all the pieces. But I guess we'll have to wait and see with that. Additionally, we
It
did
was
have
Rico Dowell.
Oh, okay, Rico Dow. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, man, the keys are yours, Rico. You gonna take them or not? There you go.
372 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. So didn't fumble though. Did not
Elites.
fumble.
Yesterday I can't remember if it was yesterday or today, Josh Jacobs did sign with the Green Bay Packers on a 3-year deal. That was put him back as one of the highest paid running backs in the league. And in turn, the Packers released Aaron Jones today as well. So interesting situation. They got younger with Josh Jacobs. I would probably say that Josh Jacobs is a better running back than Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones is a little older. I think he's 28 now, or he'll be 29 coming into this next season. Still showed some great flashes of electricity, but hampered and had to deal with a lot of injuries this last season with the hamstrings and stuff. So it kind of seemed like the writing was on the wall of that situation. I believe, I can't remember if A.J. Dillon is a free agent or not, but I do not believe that the Packers. Okay, so I was about to say. So yeah, so it'll basically be the Josh Jacobs show over in Green Bay, which is very nice for a good young team that was very solid and beat a lot of people's expectations and making the playoffs, beating the Cowboys. I think for a Packers team that's up on the rise, I think it's a great move for him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You don't like Josh?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not convinced that he's actually that good. Obviously he's good, but I don't think he's that good. Like the way people are treating him, like, oh, he led the league in rushing yards or whatever. He also got like 500,000 rushing attempts too. So
he had good efficiency though.
It's just,
and it was like you talked about, like the Giants and Saquon and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that the Raiders were known for having this elite offensive line or a good team. Like everybody knew that the Raiders were going to run. But I mean,
that is fair. But I don't know. I when I watch him run, it just doesn't seem like he's doing all that much.
This is true.
When I see Saquon run, it looks like every play could be a touchdown.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs just is strong, and he has like a one juke and that's it. But he gets the job done. Goddamn.
Yeah. And
originally, I didn't think he was that versatile, but then I looked, I was like, oh, he had 65 receptions. I was like, oh, okay, maybe, he's actually pretty versatile.
Yeah, people were like, "Oh yeah, the Packers can use him in the receiving game as well." And I was like, "Receiving game? What the hell are you talking about? Crazy!" And I was like, "Oh shit, okay, I see."
The past 3 years, he's top 5 in running back receptions. I mean, yeah, but Aaron Jones was older and dealing with his injuries, and if you're gonna pay somebody, you probably don't want it to be a 28, 29-year-old running back.
I guess I don't know. I'm looking at these stats right now, and it just doesn't seem like he's doing what the stats are showing. And
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
No, for real. They're over here lying about him getting 5 yards per carry.
I was like the efficiency is there. I was like, and last year wasn't even that great. Like the year before that was when he led the league in rushing and had his phenomenal season. And then they still chose not to pay him. And they're like, okay, we're not going to franchise tag you. We'll give you an extra $1 or $2 million. And then he came back, but he wanted his deal. And I think that overall this has been signing season, or I guess day just in general, has been a win for running backs for the most part. They've actually been some pretty decent contracts and ones that I wouldn't necessarily have expected. I didn't think that Saquon was going to get a 3-year deal. I didn't think that Josh Jacobs was going to get a 3-year deal. Like I said, after 25 or 26, you usually don't get that huge second contract. And I think that, it's going to show, as you mentioned, like people see Christian McCaffrey, people see, these other teams, and albeit there are teams that are able to get away with late round running backs and being able to work with that, like Isaiah Pacheco, and kind of just finding a diamond in the rough. But I think that the value of running backs slowly but surely is going to improve. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see, but as of right now, they've actually been having some good contracts. So not sure where Aaron Jones is going to go. That's a potential landing spot too. He could go to the Cowboys.
I found a stat where he doesn't look good. This
Okay.
is probably why. Like, well, I mean, last year or the year before last, he also had a pretty good season. But anyways, last year when you look
Mhm.
at Pro Football Focus and their elusive rating, he was 55th out of 59 qualified running backs. In that category in particular, number one was obviously Devon Achane because of his 1,700-yard rushing attempts and
Mhm.
that he had for no reason. But I don't know, it's just weird.
But
Like I
the
was
running
saying,
backs that
he just doesn't
you like
seem.
running backs that are comparable and similar to Josh Jacobs that do the same, like you like like a Nick Chubb or like a Javonte Williams. Josh Jacobs
I
is
mean,
just as good and does the exact same thing and is arguably better in some facets. I want to say better than Nick Chubb when he's fully healthy, but given the situation now with the ACL and everything, like he is a bowling
I don't know
ball.
if I I I don't know about that, but
What?
I will say that. Well, I was gonna say I don't know if that's the particular kind of running back that I do like. I might like him. I might not.
Okay.
I like Nick Chubb because he's that dude, and he's humble. He's underrated.
So is
Not a lot
Josh
of people give him
Jacobs.
his props. Josh Jacobs, but it just doesn't. It just doesn't look right watching him run.
Okay.
It's just something
Well,
about. I don't know what it
maybe it'll
is.
change your mind when you see him in that green and gold. Maybe when
Oh
the
my god,
Packers are in the NFC Championship, it might change your mind. I do
it's
not
just
predict that at
gross.
all. I think that
Yep.
is the majority of the running backs. As we mentioned, we are still waiting on Derrick Henry and where he's going to go. There were some
Austin
smaller.
Eckler,
Oh, snap. That's right. Austin Eckler
yeah.
signed with the Commanders, which is absolutely disgusting. But yeah, and they ended up releasing, or at least Antonio Gibson, I think he was a free agent. Antonio Gibson ended up signing somewhere as well. I can't remember exactly where that was. But we
Mhm.
did have Austin Eckler go to the Commanders, and in turn, Gus Edwards is now with the Chargers. I'm not exactly
You
sure
know what
how
I think
that's
it
going to
is?
work. Hmm.
You know what I think it is? It's the fact that, in terms of fantasy, you do PPR and everything. Josh
Mm-hmm.
Jacobs is more of like a Derrick Henry light, right? He's gonna get you your
But he gets
touchdowns and everything like
receptions.
that.
He has
But
six
he doesn't
receptions
really
the
get there.
past 2 years.
It doesn't seem like it. I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem right. There's something wrong with
I'm just trying to
him.
find something.
Let me see something. Let me these stats. What the hell? Let
Like
me
he's
see.
like top 3 in like receptions over the past few years. Like other than
Yeah,
Christian McCaffrey, like nobody's had more receptions.
yeah, in
Well, mainly because
2022, he was 11th in receptions, 400 yards, whatever. Yeah, okay. There's something wrong with him. I don't know what
All
it
right,
is. Something wrong.
fair
Anyways,
enough, fair
anyways.
enough. So yeah, Austin Eckler um, lost a step, or
No,
maybe more than a step,
to say the least.
and
Yep.
battled through his eye ankle sprain injury, and now he's with the Commanders, who are not. I'm not exactly sure what the Commanders are going to do. I do not know. They have the new coaching staff. They have the new coordinators. They got rid of Eric Bieniemy. I don't think that they're going to stick with Sam Howell. I'd assume that they would, I don't know exactly who they're going towards or going for in the draft, but trying to basically change the situation there. Um, Austin Eckler probably is going to be like a 1-2 punch now with Brian Robinson Jr., who is you want to talk about like, non-catching running backs. That there you go. Brian Robinson Jr.
Mhm.
He's gonna run, get you your 5 yards, but he will catch 12 balls throughout the whole season.
That's 50 Cent, man.
Yeah,
Getting shot.
exactly. He said mini men. All right. So yeah,
Mhm.
I don't, it's a move. And I feel like given the circumstances, given the situation, 2-year deal for Austin Eckler, he got a good amount of money, especially given his age and production last season. Not bad. I don't love the Gus Edwards with Justin Herbert situation. Gus Edwards wasn't necessarily asked to be a very versatile running back in Baltimore, as they had a very versatile running offense in general. And most of the time, a lot of the dump off passes that most quarterbacks or teams would have, Lamar's like, nah, I'm just going to run it. So, that works for them.
Mhm.
But now he's with the Chargers, who Justin Herbert has been notoriously known for throwing to Austin Eckler and to throwing to the bailout option. I'm not exactly sure what, they're trying to do in that situation now, but with Harbaugh, it could be a change of pace. They lose Kellen
Mhm.
Moore, so they have a new offense coordinator as well as with Harbaugh. So, do you like the Gus Edwards with the Chargers?
Well, one thing real quick with Eckler before we move on from him.
Hmm.
So last year or the year prior, he had an elusive rating that was 23rd in the league. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And then this year, he was 35th in the league in terms of his elusive rating. Whether or not that was due to the high ankle sprain or what have you, or maybe it's just old age catching up with them, or maybe it was the offensive paralysis of the Chargers not being nearly as good because of Brandon Staley's stench. Whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might have been, I think that, this move for Austin Eckler could be beneficial, and I think we'll really see whether or not he does still have a step or two left in the tank with the Commanders, because as bad as the Commanders might have looked last year, they actually had a pretty decent running game,
Their offense
and
wasn't terrible.
yeah, it was just your boy Sam Howell that was the
Hey,
stench over
hey,
there,
he had some sparks. He had some 5
bro.
touchdowns. One game.
Okay.
It's weird though. Austin Eckler, the NFL wasn't doing him any favors. They kind of did like on a lot of the major signs today basically. They had some highlights and stuff like that. And 3 out of the 4 Austin Eckler highlights that they had were breakaway runs that probably 95% of the running backs in the league would have scored touchdowns, but Austin Eckler got ran down because he's
Hmm.
not too quick. So yeah. I think
But
that he will now
along
be a versatile option with Brian Robinson.
Yeah, and along with that too, like we were talking about earlier with Saquon and the New York Giants offensive line. Do you know who was 32nd in the league in run run blocking? The
Yeah,
Chargers.
yeah. You
So
didn't draft
like,
Austin Eckler because of his rushing yards. You wanted your 9
yeah.
receptions.
So, I mean, you could always help a brother out a little bit with the
Hmm.
offensive line that can do something for you. And so, you go all the way up to ninth, where the Commanders were last year. So I think that that's also going to be beneficial for him to actually have a fighting chance in that sense. And then going over to the Chargers with um, Harbaugh, like
Hmm.
I said before, whether it's legal or not, the Harbaughs always just win.
Not legal.
And okay, that's okay. But what I think they're doing with Gus Edwards is trying to mirror what his brother is doing over there in Baltimore, and just playing a ground and pound kind of game where, yeah, they're gonna have Justin Herbert to sling that thing, but they're also gonna have a pretty decent running game when it comes to having Gus Edwards back there, who's shown that he can be a comparable NFL rusher, given the chance and given the volume. The only problem, again, is the offensive line. If you have nobody to help a brother out, you're not going to help any brothers out by doing that. And so Harbaugh, being Harbaugh, he's going to always want his guys, is what he always likes to say. And so I think that they're going to target a fair amount of offensive linemen in the draft and throughout free agency to kind of shore up that position to help out not only your franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert, but also to improve the running game. That way they can be more dynamic overall.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So that is the majority of the quarterback and running back signings. Additionally, we had a couple days ago, Mike Evans and the Buccaneers were able to come to an agreement on a re-signing, and I think it ended up being a 2-year deal. So Mike Evans stays with the Buccaneers, and had a lot to do with Baker Mayfield re-signing with the Buccaneers, who got his very solid deal. We had additionally Gabe Davis ended up signing with the Jaguars. The Jaguars were going to probably lose Calvin Ridley. So now you have Gabe Davis to go with Christian Kirk in that situation. And at times it didn't look too bad. Calvin Ridley was kind of a weird season because like it started great with that first game and then it was mediocre. And then when you're finally ready to basically saying like write him off, then he'd have like a 2-touchdown game. So I'm not exactly sure what the Calvin Ridley situation is going to look like now that he's a free agent. Who is going to want to get him? I think that he's probably going to have to settle. I don't think he's going to get a big contract or probably
Well,
a multi-year deal type thing.
if I'm remembering this correctly, I believe that since they didn't end up signing any defensive players so far
Mm-hmm.
in free agency yet, they still have some cap room to sign Calvin Ridley if they wanted to.
Based off
Um,
of last year, do you think he's worth resigning?
I mean, I think that he is, because a lot
I
of
mean,
those
but like,
throws
why
that,
sign Gabe Davis then if you're going to re-sign Calvin too?
well, because it just is another deep threat that you can have, and you can have have Calvin be back in his traditional slot position, and you have Gabe Davis be more of the outside receiver, where you have
Christian,
that deep ball threat, and you don't have to worry about Christian Kirk Captain Kirk, who is all of 6 feet tall. Again, these small receivers, they're great down the field, but they're even better if you add 4 inches to them and turn them into Gabe Davis. So I think that, big game Gabe can give them a boost. And we know how much Goldilocks loves to throw the ball down the field, potentially to the other team, but also potentially into the end zone for a touchdown. So
Yeah, but Trevor Lawrence is overrated. I'm sorry. We talked about it. A lot of his career stats compared to Mac Jones are comparable. I ain't gonna go throughout this entire thing, but Mac Jones is now the backup quarterback for Trevor Lawrence, and they have very, very similar career stats. I'm just all I'm gonna say. It wasn't a signing, but we did have Jerry Jeudy traded to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a
you want
fifth
to talk
and
about
sixth round
overrated?
picks. So I don't think people think he's overrated anymore. I think if you get traded for a sixth round pick, you can no longer say that you're him. But I think as a number 3 option, you're probably going to have Amari Cooper still there, and then you have David Njoku, and then you could have Jerry Jeudy. I think that I don't think he's a bad player. I just think that with all of the trash talk, with all the heat, all of the arguments and stuff like that and battles he had throughout the season, and like his draft prospect, like his ceiling and where his expectations are for himself are way higher than they should have been. I don't think he's a bad receiver, but
Yeah, but I do.
Browns can worry about him.
I was gonna say though, who's not throwing the ball? Like,
Deshaun.
uh, okay. Well, we saw how well that worked last year.
Hey man, still shaking off that rust.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
take a long time.
I don't know. They do not have a choice. They gave him everything. Like, every person that works in the front office they are all in that. They are all collateral. That somebody has to pay this $256 million, guaranteed. Guaranteed. That is crazy. So yeah,
He must have had I was gonna say, he must have had Kirk Cousins help him with that contract or something, man.
that's crazy.
Because
He was like, I mean, when he was in the Texans before all the allegations came out, he was an elite, probably the most elite young quarterback out there. What Mahomes is now, he was probably like one notch below that. He wasn't winning the Super Bowls and stuff like that because the Texans weren't that good of a team, but like he was a notch below that. And they were just like, hey man, we need a quarterback. Here's my whole entire life. Take it. So that is crazy. And we talk about, how Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott are resetting the market and stuff like that. People don't really talk about the Deshaun Watson thing, resetting the market, because nobody's going to do that. And nobody's just going to be like, here, I'm just going to assume for the next 5 years, you're going to be elite. You're going to be great. You're not going to get hurt. All of these allegations are going to go away and everything's going to be great. We're going to win 5 Super Bowls. It's going to be fine. No, that's not going to happen. So that is the majority of the offensive signings. One thing that we forgot to mention with the Eagles, we did talk about Jason Kelce retiring, but Fletcher Cox also did retire as well. So, a leader on the offense and a leader on the defense is now gone. And even though the Eagles do have good pieces defensively, their defense was not great and were not, as good as the expectations were for them coming into the season. So we'll see, have to have some people step up. But yeah, that was a point as well. So a lot of losses. Saquon's a big gain. He covers up a lot of that stuff, but he can't play defense. So, that was a big note for them too. Yeah.
A minor signing for your Seahawks. You guys re-signed Noah Fant at tight end. That will be sure to help out your guys' Super Bowl chances up there.
Somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody, like some team paid like Cody Parkinson's, like I swear it was like a 3 year, $44 million. So I'm like, what? Where? What for? what? I don't get me wrong. I love. Okay, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love Cody. They just like to play tight ends, because then who was the tight end that's there already? They gave him like a huge deal already.
Yeah. Well, what's his face? He popped his ACL. I can see him on my fantasy team, but his name is not popping into my head.
I can't remember any of his. Here, let me just look at this depth chart because this is ridiculous. It is Tyler Higbee.
Yep, Higbee. There we go.
But Kobe Parkinson's. I mean, like, get your bag, Kobe. But yeah, go.
Like I said, money ain't real. Money,
I guess not.
Not real.
But yeah, all these signings and everything, like, this is great happening. We got our new head coach, the young man from the Ravens, defensive coordinator. I think he's like 36 years old. So that's cool and stuff. But we haven't been making any noise in this free agents market. We've like you said, we re-signed Noah Fant. Yippee. We restructured Tyler Lockett's deal, so I think we freed up about like $11 million for us. So yippee. Don't know exactly what we're going to do. The Geno situation, who we're going to draft. Like, we're not making any trades. Like, I don't know what's going to happen there. So I'm just hoping and praying that we have better days. How you feeling as a Saints fan, Drew? Because I ain't feeling too great right now.
I also don't feel great because, like I was telling you, I hope that we get rid of everyone. I don't want a soul left on the team, except for maybe, like Alvin Kamara. That'd be
breaking
nice.
news.
But,
so the Bengals are releasing Joe Mixon, and they signed Zach Moss to a 2-year, $8 million deal.
Gross.
Joe Mixon is, I think, one of those other running backs that is about that 27, 28-year-old range, which is when you want to stop running backs. And now another potential. So now you got Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, and Joe Mixon as basically the 3 best free agent running backs that are currently on the market for all of you teams out there.
Would you say that J.K. Dobbins is a commodity that you would want on your team?
No.
Why?
Because he can't stay healthy.
But when he is healthy,
he's hurt. Literally, every time that I see it, like a report out there, oh my gosh, J.K. Dobbins is healthy. Alert, J.K. Dobbins is now questionable with a knee injury. Like, when he's healthy, he's hurt. That's why the Ravens have 1 million running backs, because they went all in. They're like, oh my gosh, we're going to draft J.K. Dobbins. I don't know if he was a first or second rounder, but they drafted him pretty highly. And then he tore everything in the preseason, and then he came back, and then he tore it again, and then he came back, and then he battled through all these other minor injuries. So if I am a team, even though I don't know what LD is, I think it's only like 25 or something like that, why would I, pay him the money? And like last year, he was talking about, like, he was trying to hold out to try to get a contract too. I don't know why you're going to try to hold out when your resume is just torn muscles and ligaments, but he was trying to hold out for a contract, didn't get the contract, ended up settling, and was like, okay, fine, I'm just going to play. Nobody's going to franchise tag him, so the Ravens didn't franchise tag him. He's a free agent, and I don't know who's going to pick him up. He's probably, I think he could probably be a good committee back. Like, I wouldn't be mad if he was like in my committee or something like that, but yeah, no, I ain't gonna. No, thank you. I'd rather have Joe Mixon. I'd rather have Aaron Jones. I'd rather have Derrick Henry. I'd rather have all of these running backs, except for like Devin Singletary. I don't know how that man got paid, but it's okay.
Like I'm just scrolling through the Russian EPA of last year, and I'm trying to see who would be a good fit for some of these running backs. Maybe Joe Mixon could be Dallas could be a landing spot for Joe Mixon.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Joe Mixon? Because you talked about how you don't like Josh Jacobs and stuff like that. Joe Mixon isn't, breaking nobody's boots. He's just a hard run. But Josh Jacobs is much better than Joe Mixon. The Joe Mixon is like a light version of Josh Jacobs. Like, maybe because people thought Joe Mixon was his comp was Adrian Peterson coming out of college. Yeah. So he's had a solid career. I think he's been a Pro Bowler. Obviously he's been to the Super Bowl and things like that. But he's not Adrian Peterson, but he's been a very solid running back. But no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're around the same kind of person, except for. It's weird because Joe Mixon, he'll have some really good games and go off a couple games, and then he'll just just no show.
It's like he won't even go Josh off. Jacobs, they're force feed him with 30 touches. He'll get 3 touchdowns on 94 yards rushing.
Yeah, it's like the most inefficient going off that you can have. Yeah, but nevertheless, in fantasy, it all money still spends the same regardless of where it's from, right?
True.
So it's
yeah, whenever I can get Joe Mixon as an RB2, I'm happy.
Oh yeah, so that's where I see Josh Jacobs is that guy. But then I look at these stats and I'm like, when did that happen? it's like I don't remember
RB2 or 3 2 years ago too. So Joe Mixon has always been a solid RB2. But yeah, I think that Joe Mixon is a solid running back. He'll probably
Do you think that Houston could be a spot for your boy Joe Mixon to land. Or who else would you like to see partnered up with your offensive rookie of the year over there?
I wanted the Texans to get Saquon, and there was a lot of reports saying that they were going to try to go all in on Saquon when they could have done it because they had the money to do so, especially with C.J. Stroud and their rookie on their contracts. But that's who I wanted them to get. I wouldn't be mad if any of these players ended up going with the Texans. I think that all of the players remaining, albeit probably a little older, are all better than Devin Singletary and better than see, now he used to be one of my favorite running backs, and now I can't even remember his name. The sophomore running back that was in front of Devin Singletary for the Texans last.
Pierce, Damian Pierce,
Damian
your
Pierce.
boy.
I don't know what happened to him, but he used to be one of my favorite running backs. He was the bowling ball. He was baby Nick Chubb, and then he just forgot. It was just got inefficient. It was so weird though, because Devin Singletary would come in and like it would be kind of some lightning. He would get like some big chunk yards, something like that, and then Damian Pierce would come in, and then the offensive line like acted like they didn't know how to block anymore, or maybe I don't know if they were mad or what, but whenever Damian Pierce ran the ball, nothing happened.
They just like opened the gates.
Literally, nothing positive happened. But yeah, so I would be fine with Josh Jacobs or with Joe Mixon. I don't think that they're gonna try to go in on Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a weird situation. Like, unless on the Cowboys or Ravens, like those are the only two teams I really can see him going to.
I see him playing more like a LeGarrette Blount kind of role. Like at this point in his career, just like a bruiser on the goal line and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
it sucks though.
he doesn't have like, you know, again, we said this every year. Oh, this is the year he's gonna go downhill, and then he's still 1,000 yards or whatever, and then 15 touchdowns, something crazy. But at the same time, I do think that now that these injuries are starting to catch up with him, and now that he's starting to miss more and more time due to these ailments, I think that it's catching up with him. The Yeti is slowing down. He is no longer rolling downhill. He is starting to fight an uphill battle in the mountains.
It sucks though, because like this 7 to 10 year period of I've always loved football and been a fan of the NFL and stuff like that. But this 7 to 10 year period, like when you're completely like invested in things like fantasy and all that kind of stuff, like this running back generation is dying. it's dying slowly but surely. Dalvin Cook was the start last year, but now you have the Austin Eckler, who's been a fantasy superstar, and now you have Derrick Henry and all this kind of stuff, and now you have all these running backs that can't even find homes. So it's weird and unfortunate, but it's just the situation that we're going to. And unless like sometimes you'll seep through the cracks and end up getting a good running back contract, or unless your name's Christian McCaffrey or something like that, is not the case. But we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. Who do you think that? So if you had Joe Mixon,
real quick. So going back to your original point about the Saints, I'm not sure how we deviated that far, but leave it to me to lead us astray.
I don't remember when I brought Thomas.
Michael Thomas is he's a free agent right now.
No,
so he is.
No, he's not.
What do you mean he's not?
He needs to retire. That's what he is.
Okay. I was like, I'm looking at it right now. He's a free agent.
He should not be a free agent. He should be a retiree.
Okay. But yeah, so he is on the market for a team to, bring in that cancer into the locker room. And I think that if we can successfully deploy him to one of our division rivals, I think that can be a great way for the Saints to move up the ladder in the NFC South. You know what I mean? So we send him out maybe to the Falcons because they're, like really hot right now, right? The ATL is always hot, they say, right? Anyways, so I think we deploy him over there. He successfully infiltrates them, tears them down from the inside, and maybe he even converts Christian Kirk to go to a couple nightclubs, or Christian Kirk, Kirk Cousins to go to a couple nightclubs, right? And then throws him off his game. He's not used to that. He's not used to the ATL, even though his wife's from there. But that's not what he's about. He's about Minnesota.
Hey, man, they helping him out. Justin Jefferson, they'd win those games. They give him his ice on the plane. He would
Oh
You know
God.
what I'm saying?
Oh no.
So maybe he's used
ATL
to
is a
that.
different place. All
This is
right.
true.
And
This
you
is
saw
true.
that. And
Just
so,
trying to imagine him
given
coming in his collar, buttoned up. Hi, my name's Kirk. Just coming into the ATL, like,
exactly.
oh my god.
So, you know, we do this and then we tank. We tank to hell and high water. All right. We are trash for maybe 2, maybe 3 years, right? And then we have our future high school quarterback right now. He's probably a senior in high school right now. We're looking for you. We're scouting you. We see you out there. We would love to have you be a New Orleans Saints. What do you say, kid? And they'll say, hell yeah, absolutely. I'm down.
You
He'll
say,
probably rocking a mullet
no.
and stuff.
It,
Okay.
it's
He's
so
he probably use
fitting.
AI or something right now. So
It's so fitting that you talk about how the worst thing that you want to do in the NFL is just be mediocre, and the Saints are basically that. You can't
exactly.
tank.
That's what I'm telling you.
You can't
Yes, we
tank.
can. Yes, we
No, you
can,
can't.
Alex. We
You
have
have too
to.
much. You have
We
too
have
much
to.
money invested, and it's so weird. Michael Thomas had like the few good seasons with Drew Brees, and he had the offensive player of the year and all that kind of stuff. And then he just turned into like I don't even know. Even from like Michael Thomas to like Michael Crabtree, he like and Michael
21
Crabtree is like a
Savage.
solid receiver and stuff like that. But like now he's just basically a possession receiver, and I think that some teams could use that. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a $8 million deal or 1 year deal. Juju can get a $10 million deal. Then I'm sure Michael Thomas can find something out there on the market after probably I don't know, maybe after the draft. I'm not exactly sure because
I mean, if Jerry Judy's out here getting signed, there ain't no way that Michael Thomas
yeah,
is
but he's
not,
young.
getting signed. Well, I don't care if that man is a baby. He is not good compared to Michael Thomas. What has Jerry Judy done in the NFL? Absolutely nothing. Let me answer that for you. Absolutely nothing. Michael Thomas was the former #1 wide receiver in the NFL, broke records, turned heads, kissed babies,
Hey,
caught millions and millions of touchdowns.
He caught millions and millions of balls on 5-yard slants because Drew Brees wanted to hyper target. You talk about, Cooper Kupp and all this kind of stuff from Matthew Stafford. Like, I've never seen somebody more hyper targeted. I think I also just had this vendetta out against Michael Thomas, too, because the year after him coming off of that, offensive player of the year where he broke the receptions record and all that kind of stuff, I drafted him. And that's why I drafted him like, third or I don't know. It was like seventh. I don't know what it was. But, first game, great. Give me my 20 points. That's solid right there. And then, he just goes and rolls his ankle. And we're like, oh no, it's, he says he's going to be fine. Literally after that game, misses the next game. It proceeds to miss the entire season and then proceeds to miss the entire next season.
So
and then comes back and then gets hurt again and then comes back this season and is kind of just on and off. But yeah, I don't know. I hope Michael Thomas finds a good home. Y'all should re-sign him. Derek Carr could use weapons.
Absolutely not.
Alvin Kamara is older. He's aging. He seems like he's kind of lost a little bit of a step too, but I think he's still under contract with you guys for at least the next year or two. So have to wait and see with that. But that is the majority of the offensive signings. Defensively, some of the big ones that we did have were Chris Jones re-signing with the Chiefs, deal that they were trying to get done for a while now. Him coming off of the 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, and he has now signed a record 5-year deal that includes $95 million guaranteed to keep him with KC. There's talk about Andy Reid potentially retiring. He's back. Talk about Travis Kelce potentially retiring. He's back. So the Chiefs are ready to run it back for this three-peat. It's probably going to happen. Christian Wilkins, former Dolphin, ended up signing a very large deal with the Raiders, 4 years, $110 million. That includes $85 million guaranteed. So now pairing him with Max Crosby that's pretty nasty. That's kind of nasty. I ain't gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean they were low key one of the better defensive lines that were in the NFL, and I think that going with the strategy of boosting one of your strengths as opposed to boosting one of your poorer positions, I think is a pretty good strategy, because especially when it comes to the interior line, games are won and lost in the trenches, right? So when you have somebody that can be a game changer at that position and complement the defensive line that you already have, I think that it's a very valuable move. Last year, EPA per play, the uh, the Raiders ended up being ninth in the league, in preventing, well, just ninth in the league in terms of EPA per play, and also in preventing deep balls down the field. I think that it's going to be able to cover up their mistakes in the secondary, and all the holes that they do have in the secondary are going to be kind of masked because they're able to get a lot more pressure on the quarterback. So
This is true. This is true. I'm not exactly sure how much I like Gardner Minshew, but then I'm like, this man just straight up won games for the Colts, who were distraught with the QB situation, with Josh Richardson, with having to deal with Jonathan Taylor and all that kind of stuff. And all Gardner Minshew did was, almost put them in the playoffs. So,
yeah,
if Devontae's still there, Devontae's not happy, but he's still there. They're gonna have to get a new running back now that Josh Jacobs gone. I'm not exactly sure if they have yet or not, but not exactly sure what's gonna happen in that situation. But I mean, hey, Gardner Minshew, he was basically, he wasn't even on a prove it deal. He was just a backup, and he made the best of his situation when Josh Richardson or Anthony Richardson got hurt, and now he's a starting quarterback for the Raiders. So there you go.
mm-hmm.
Were there any
I
other
think,
signings that you wanted to get into?
yeah, going off of the Wilkins deal, I think that it's kind of interesting what the Dolphins are trying to do here. Like, obviously, they gotta dump a lot of contracts and they gotta dump a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But are you really
Got to pay
willing to
Tua.
do that at the exactly? Are you going to do that at the expense of your defense, the thing that you work so hard to build up? That way you can complement your offense, like, and you're just like that. You're just tearing it all down, getting rid of Van Ginkel. You lost Bradley Chubb to an ACL, and then you're getting rid of Wilkins. I believe they lost another dude in the secondary as well, who's one of the top defenders as well. So you get rid of all these players, and now, sure, yeah, we pay Tua. Is Tua worth it? Maybe. But
You
at
have
the
to.
same time, do you though?
Well, yeah. Like,
Like,
you want to sign Russell Wilson?
well, I don't know about that, but I'm saying, like, you know,
You want to
there's
sign
got to
Gardner
be
Minshew?
there's got to be a way to when you put it that way. But I'm saying there's got to be a way that some of these players can either restructure their contracts and or find comparable. Maybe it's not really comparable players for Wilkins, but um, try and do what you can to save some of these players and keep your defense, at least like some of the core pieces of your defense. That way you're not just building from scratch, because right now they're starting over from scratch. You lose one of your best, you're the best player on your defense, and Wilkins. You lose your best secondary, best safety, and you also lose your linebacker. So like I just don't know. Yeah, you have to, but I don't think that Tua is going to be worth it in the long run, especially when he's literally one injury away from being done with his career. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. You kind of have to, and it's the same type of situation. I'm like, well, how are the 49ers able to do that? It's because Brock Purdy's still on his rookie contract. So he's a year or two behind what the Dolphins are having to do now. The 49ers would be. So they're able to keep they already signed the Bosa, and they're able to keep the Debo and an Ayuk and a Christian McCaffrey and stuff like that, just because Brock Purdy's on this rookie contract. And not only on a rookie contract, he's on a rookie contract, an undrafted rookie contract, not undrafted, last pick of the draft rookie contract, which was like
mhm.
$900,000. Now with Tua, it's literally the same type of situation as Brock Purdy. You have all of these weapons. You have the potential offensive player of the year candidate with Tyreek Hill as a finalist. Actually, you have Jalen Waddle. You have A-Chain. You have Mostert and stuff like that. But because of that, he's
Yeah.
actually had decent production, and you kind of have to pay him, because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're just going to be back in mediocrity. You're going to be like the Seahawks. You're going to be like the Saints. You're going to be like, well, what do
Hey,
we do? What do we do at quarterback? We don't really have a choice. So I think Tua has been just, it's so weird. We put every quarterback, I feel like, in top 15 to 12, but I think Tua is better than that. At least he's probably shown that he could be like he's a borderline top 10 quarterback. I probably would say that's pretty much where I would rank him.
Yeah.
And because of that, you have to sign him, and that comes at the fault. I don't think anybody was saying that the Dolphins had a great defense either. They shown signs and they improved throughout the season, but even with
Oh, yeah, they ain't
Wilkins, I
great,
don't
but
think that they were very good.
yeah. I mean, they definitely improved over towards the end of the season, and that's
Yeah.
where that's one of their strengths were in terms of how they were able to stay in some of these games. Um, but again, I do believe that in terms of, you know, value, it's it's not going to be really pretty this year coming out for the Dolphins because they sold their souls and ended up not working out in the long run because here they are with all this money and nothing to or with all of this these people to pay and nothing to show for it. Whereas you had the Rams who did the similar thing years ago, but since they are notorious for being able to draft just the perfect players
Yeah.
for every position,
Yeah.
they're not left in this downward spiral where they have to just unload some of their elite players in order to get one quarterback who is good
Mm-hmm.
in a particular scheme, but not great.
I mean, in
So
fairness to Tua, like he did play pretty much every game this season, I think. So, like,
yeah,
we had a lot of questions coming into this season, and he was able to answer them. He was a MVP candidate at one point in time until they got mollywopped by the Bills. But and now I think going
also real
forward,
quick,
you said what?
I was gonna say Dolphins were 15th in EPA per play on defense this year. So
There
a
you go.
little pack.
And now there's talk about, should they trade Jalen Waddle? You would have to pay him or franchise tag him starting next season. You already have Tyreek Hill, and I think going into next year, that would be his last year under his 3-year contract. So then you're like, it's these last two, this last season and this season, it's basically the time that you want or you have to win for the Dolphins because you're going to have to start paying some big money. And Jalen Waddle's going to try to get top of the market wide receiver money, and I think he deserves it, which is weird though because like this last season he was very injury prone and he was hurt a lot, but when he has played, he's had great production, he's had great yards per catch, he's had the most yak in the league, and he's probably the second or third fastest player in the NFL. It just happens the other two happen to be on his team, but yeah, there's not really much that you can do if you're the Dolphins in that situation. So I don't know. And I don't see them winning. Like, I don't see them being a contender in the AFC. I don't see them making the AFC championship or anything like that. They're going to be a dynamic offense like last year, but they're going to have a mediocre defense. And when their offense absolutely does need to score, there's going to be times where they're not going to be able to, and they're going to lose games because of that, especially in the playoffs, or if you have to play in conditions and not everything's all peachy and sunny like it is down in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
one that we did forget too, we had Michael Pittman, who was originally franchise tagged by the Colts, but then re-signed to a 3-year, $71.5 million deal with $46 million guaranteed. So they sign up. They're 6'4" Pittman, baby Godzilla, baby Mike Evans. And now you basically have him. You have Josh Richardson on his rookie contract. You have Jonathan Taylor, who you signed after his holdout from last season. So now you have a pretty good young core of offensive weapons. And they shown last year they gave up a lot of points, but somehow Gardner Minshew was able to outscore some of these teams, having these like 36-39 games with the Browns of all people and stuff like that. But I mean, I think the Colts at times have shown that they can be a good team. And you re-sign Zaire Franklin. You still have some good pieces on defense. So the Colts could be solid. And as long as I keep saying Josh Richardson, as long as Anthony Richardson can learn how to slide coming into this next season, everything could be okay.
Yeah,
but if he wants to think he's Cam Newton, it's not gonna work out.
He's gonna end up sitting next to Cam Newton on his podcast. That's what's gonna happen.
Literally. So that is the majority of the signings that we had for this upcoming season. Were there any others that you wanted to get into, Drew?
No, I believe that's everything. I think the biggest thing right now is where is Justin Fields going to go, and obviously the other big story is what are the Saints going to do, so
what are you going to do, Drew? You can't tank. You have to give Derek Carr
You
at least
have
one.
to
Yeah, you're in a Russell Wilson situation. You have to give Derek Carr at least one more year because you can't.
trade him.
You
Eat
can't
it.
dead.
Eat
You
the
can't
money.
eat. You cannot eat that
I'll
much
pay
money.
him. We'll get New Orleans to pay him. The city of New Orleans.
He said, "Y'all
Get
take
that man
checks."
out of here.
It's just one season. It's just one season.
God.
I
I
mean,
don't
you're
know.
not giving him much help. You have out the corpse of Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas in a wheelchair. So, I mean, I don't know what you want him to do.
Tank and throw games. I don't care
Well, I'm
what you
saying
have
I
to
don't
do.
know what you want Derek Carr to do. I mean, this man can only do so much.
Well, yeah, that's what. Well, I want him to also throw games. Like I
Okay.
want everybody to throw the game. If we can have bounties on people's heads, I think that we can find a mob to pay off some of these players to throw games.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Right.
ultimately, I think that you know, in terms of people signing and everything, I think that today was just the wild, wild west, and I think it's going to slow down from here. Usually, the first couple days, first week or so, it's an all-out blitz to sign your guy because they call it legal tampering for a reason because these players have already been talking, and they've already had these contracts in place,
For
but
sure.
they're just waiting for the specific day to finalize some of these contracts and stuff. So, um, you know, we'll see where other players go and everything, but so far, I mean, I don't really hate any of the moves so far, but
I mean, some of them are gross,
you know,
but some of them they've been some pretty blockbuster moves. The one that didn't happen because they ended up franchise tagging him was T. Higgins franchise tagged by the Bengals, but now he talked about not wanting to be franchise tagged. He wants a contract. Obviously, they paid Burrow and paid Chase and all this kind of stuff. So he wanted his contract, and now that he's been franchise tagged, he's requested a trade. So what the
mhm.
Bengals do in that situation, not exactly sure. Maybe I don't know what they're going to do in that situation actually, because T. Higgins is a number one wide receiver. I feel like on pretty much almost any other team other than like the elite wide receiver teams, and I think that he would probably bode a decent draft pick. But at the same time, people are probably not going to want to pay a lot for him because he's going to be an unrestricted free agent going into next season. Because I don't think they can franchise tag him back to back in that situation. So I don't know what they're going to do in that situation. So Bengals already lost Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
They chose to release Joe Mixon, and now T. Higgins wants out. So, Burrow and Chase versus the world.
Yeah, that's
So,
all I really got on that end of the world there.
so that is going to tie up the NFL. We were going to get into the NBA today, but we chose to push that until next week's episode since we will be talking strictly basketball. It will be we may cover if some of these other big signings. We may have a little snippet segment talking about some of the other smaller signings that have happened, or some of these running backs finally getting moved, or Justin Fields. But next week will be strictly pretty much NBA as well as March Madness, which starts on the 19th for all of y'all getting ready to fill out your brackets and stuff like that. I'm just hoping that you're ready for the news alert and updates and stuff like that, Drew, when they come out and they tell everybody that Alex Harris finally broke the record and has the perfect bracket and he won the $1 million bracket challenge. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm working on my speech as we talk, and anybody that wants to get shouted out, I'll make sure to write your name down. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
I'm gonna say we should make a little bracket for our podcast and everything.
Oh yeah, most definitely we can do that. We can do that. Drew has some weird techniques when it comes to his bracket building. It's basically like trying to copy. It's like you had the genius child in school and with me, and then like you try to copy my homework, and the teacher's like you gotta make a couple little changes. So Drew tries to throw in a couple 7-10 upsets in there, and then all this other stuff. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
I guess.
Yep.
If I do recall, I have beaten you every single year that we've ever done a bracket.
That's not true at all. I think you've won 2.
That's probably true.
But the trash will get a steak in it every once in a while.
And that's okay as long as I get my steak when I eat it. You know what I mean?
So. A1. But that's
And
pretty
since day
much it.
one.
So thank you everybody for listening. This has been the College Shot Podcast with your host Alex Harris and Drew Moore. We will talk to you next week.
Actually,
Actually,
hold on one second.
hold on one second.
I'd like to give a quick shout out to Caitlin Clark, breaking the all-time record for points in a career when it comes to college basketball, men or women, breaking Pistol Pete Maravich's record as well. So shout out to her. What?
Question. I love Caitlin
What?
Clark. And people are saying like she's
Oh,
going
boy.
to obviously change the transition of the WNBA, which is gaining more and more popularity as it should, and the NCAA. They're talking about that. I think the week or the game that she broke the record, there was like more viewers than the Victor Wembanyama's rookie debut, which is completely insane. What are your thoughts on the records? Because people are talking about Pete Maravich did that in 3 seasons. But now, like, basically, nobody's really going to talk about Pistol Pete. It's just a little kind of losing a little bit of history because people are saying that, people aren't really going to talk about Pistol Pete, not necessarily from the perspective of, college and stuff, but, he's an older player that a lot of people said that they base their games around with the handles and all that kind of stuff. But now he's just not going to be forgotten. He's going to be forgotten what he did in 3 seasons.
Well, I mean, he's not gonna be forgotten. He's second.
I mean,
Granted,
ain't nobody going to talk about second. That's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, like it's history. Records are meant to be broken. And, just because LeBron broke the record for all-time scoring in the NBA doesn't mean people are just going to forget about Kareem. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, sure. It's like, she has that record now. And sure, it was within a longer time period as well. But again, records are meant to be broken. And if that was the case where, oh, she took 4 years to do it, or somebody took 5 years to do it, whatever, they still broke the record. And that's all that really matters. And, numbers lie, people lie. So it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter all that much. But it's a nice accomplishment to have underneath your belt. And they bring it up in terms of men versus women and of any gender or whatever, because of the prowess that men's sports gets compared to, women's sports. And so seeing a woman break a man's record is like a powerful thing for the women's basketball community. And, I just think it's just a nice little accolade to have for Caitlin Clark out there. So. Yeah.
Definitely. People talk about these records. I agree with you. People talk about these records all the time, or undefeated seasons for men's basketball and stuff like that, and how rare it is and stuff. But people don't talk about like Gino Auriemma and his like UConn days and all that kind of stuff, or don't talk about Maya Moore and players like that enough. So, but one other question, because we usually don't do the bracket for the women's NCAA. Maybe we should this season.
I do.
But
You sexist.
what do you? I never heard you talk about it. But
what do my family does every year?
What?
My sister always wins, but
who do you think?
Go ahead.
Little prediction. Who do you, or if you want to do it, you don't have to tell me who you think's going to win, because we could just do it. We could just do a bracket. We could do the both brackets this season. I was just going to say, what are your thoughts on Iowa? Do you actually think that they are going to go all the way, as they ended up, losing to LSU last year? But now you got South Carolina being this juggernaut that they are. So, I mean, they had their little scramble with LSU the other day. So.
You got people bulldozing folks. I was watching that game. I was cutting my hair when I was watching that game, and all of a sudden I see their center go up to this girl and just move, and I was like,
Angel Reese didn't want none of that though. Like, but she was like Shaq
the
out
girl's
there.
brother. The girl's brother like jumped onto the court and stuff, was about to like throw hands. They had to get security to take him off and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was kind of crazy that Coach Mulkey was saying, I wish that Dawn would have put her hands on Angel Reese or whatever.
Yeah,
I was like,
push no 5'7" guard. But that's kind of true though, because then it kind of showed like a larger cam view, and like when the fight started to happen, Angel Reese was like, "Nah, I ain't dealing with this. I'm just gonna walk away." Even though they kind of had their little back and forth throughout the entirety of the game. But South Carolina got the win, and now they're 32-0, and LSU drops to 28-5, and they're currently, what are they ranked right now? I think they're 8th. Yeah, they're 8th.
They were 8th. They'll probably they might say the same. But
yeah. And
to answer your question, I don't think that Iowa's gonna win it all. They do have a very complete team, but their defense at times is just atrocious. It is kind of as strong as a wet paper bag, to be honest. But Caitlin Clark and I forgot the other girl's name. It's one of the guards. She's going to be one of
I know
the
you're talking
better
about.
guards in the country. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. After Caitlin Clark leaves, it's going to be her show essentially. But between the two of them, and they have another post. Again, apologize, don't remember these names, but I think that their offense will. Okay, I think that their offense has been able to cover up a lot of the holes on defense, and you can see whenever they play against a bigger team, like whenever they played against, I believe it was Ohio State, they were kind of dominating them down low. Obviously, in the rematch, they dominated them back, and Caitlin got her revenge. But in the first matchup, Ohio State was just bullying them, and so I think that whenever they run into a bigger team, more physical team, that's where they're going to struggle. And I mean, even though there's a lot of game film on Caitlin Clark, they're still going to be, pretty hard to stop her, as you've seen. She holds the record for most points in a career. So clearly, it's not easy.
This is facts. That is all I got. Also, shout out to Juju. Juju Watkins, my favorite female basketball player. Just saying. Go ahead.
Yep, facts. She, that's one of my dark horses to go deep in the tourney.
USC.
They're just
you just like USC regardless. I don't. They could. Wow. They could have Juju Smith-Schuster out there, and you probably still be rooting for him. So it's fine. Drew's like, yeah, Bronny James going to be the tournament MVP.
Hey man,
hold on. I don't think they can't even make the. I don't think they're gonna make the tournament.
Hear me right now. I am calling my shot. USC is going to win the final Pac-12 championship in men's college basketball and in women's college basketball.
Well, I mean, women's, yeah, but for men's, maybe that's all they have. That's all they have.
Well, because they ain't gonna be. What do you mean?
I don't think they're going. What's their record now?
Bruh. Look at this. So with the women's bracket, that they have one of the most stacked brackets in the country. So you have Stanford. Oh, for the men's? Well, hold on, because they also have a pretty stacked bracket as well. Because you have number 5 Arizona, who was number 5 until USC knocked them off. I keep on forgetting these players' names. I need to do some research before we talk about this next week. But USC has one of their major guards back from injury, and ever since he's came back from injury, you've seen how much better they're able to click on offense. And Bronny James isn't really that big part of the offense, but he is still a factor off the bench nevertheless with his 3 points a game or something like that. But I do believe that USC can win this tournament for sure, and as well as the women's team too. So
well, no, I'm saying like if they do win the tournament, regardless of if they win or not, they're not going to be able to make the NCAA tournament.
They would though.
Oh, because they did not. True.
Auto bid.
Yeah, literally. Mm-hmm. I hope they do, Drew. I hope they do for you. I hope they do for you.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got for you guys as well. Make sure to like, subscribe, download the podcast. That helps the most. And if you have any suggestions or things that you want us to talk about or cover on the podcast, just let us know. Shoot us a DM on Instagram or DM us on YouTube as well.
MySpace.
But yeah, MySpace, Google Meets or what was that back in the day? Foursquare, Google Foursquare, something like that. Anyways, Tumblr,
Webkins, Messenger. Don't worry about anything. It's fine.
Hey man, don't catch me on Webkins, bro. I had a turtle back in the day. Anyways, we're getting off the rails. That's all we got. That's over. End of the podcast.
We will see you next week.
Peace.
Of course, you had a turtle. I had a penguin.